Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear viewers. Welcome to this session of textual study of the Quran. Today, this is the 106th session, I'm told, of our study that began a few years ago. We will be starting off with verse 73 of Surah Araf, the seventh surah of the Quran. So, just as a small reminder, Surah Araf is the second surah of the second chapter of the Quran, and it forms a pair with its previous surah, which is Surah Anam. In this particular surah, you will find that the basic premise regarding the denial of the messengers of God and the fact that the Quraysh have now been sent with a similar messenger that was sent to previous prophets of God, like Ad and the nation of Ad and the nation of Samud, and of course the people of Lot and Abraham and all the major prophets of God. And the examples of these prophets of God and these messengers are given, and the Quraysh are addressed and told that if they follow their footsteps, then their own fate will be no different. Just as they were destroyed and wiped out from the face of the earth, they will also follow suit. So in this regard, we had studied the accounts of a few prophets and nations earlier on, and now in this section, we'll be discussing some of the remaining prophets that are discussed. So we'll start with the Prophet Saleh, who was sent to the nation Hud, and the words are وَإِلَى ثَمُودَ أَخَاهُمْ صَالِحًا قَالَ يَا قَوْمِ اعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ مَا لَكُم مِّنْ إِلَٰهٍ غَيْرِهِ قَدْ جَاءَتْكُم بَيِّنَةٌ مِّن رَّبِّكُمْ هَٰذِهِ نَاقَةُ اللَّهِ لَكُمْ آيَةً فَذَرُوهَا تَأْكُلْ فِي أَرْضِ اللَّهِ وَلَا تَمَسُّوهَا بِسُوءٍ فَيَأْخُذَكُمْ عَذَابٌ أَلِيمٌ. In a similar way to the Thamud, we had sent their brother Saleh. He called upon them, O people of my nation, worship God. You have no other God than Him. A clear sign has come to you from your Lord. This is God's she-camel, as a sign for you. So leave it that it may graze in the land of God, and do not touch it with any evil intention. Otherwise, a painful torment will visit you. So the Samud, a very famous nation of ancient nation of Arabia, they are basically the remnants of the Ad, and precisely for this reason they're also called the second Ad. And amongst these ancient nations of the Arabs, this was the second nation after Ad that gained extraordinary fame, and they inhabited the land of Hijr, which actually lies in the northwest of Arabia. And we also know that as far as that some among the Ad were protected from the divine scourge as they migrated to the northwest from the south and came to inhabit the area of Hijr. We also know that the Quran and Arab traditions mention the same traits and attributes of both Ad and Samud, so they were very similar to one another. Some poets mention them in such a manner as if there is absolutely no difference between the two. Qail and Kedar, the leaders of both these nations, because of which these nations were destroyed, they have become proverbially famous in Arabic literature. Anyone who has an eye on Arabic literature will find them to be constantly brought up as subject. So it is said that do not touch it with any evil intention. So you can see that one of the signs that was given before any destruction would visit the people of Samud was that it was the she-camel about which it was said that you leave it so that it may graze in the land of God, and do not touch it with any evil intention, otherwise a painful torment will visit you. Now this was the answer given by Prophet Saleh when the Samud asked him for a sign of divine punishment. Remember, this is a very common attitude that you'll find the nations of prophets. They would often ask that they are being threatened with the punishment, and if this is really a true thing, and they are not bluffing, these messengers are not bluffing, then the nations would normally say that please show us that punishment that you are continuously threatening us with. So in the case of the Samud, he told them, the Prophet Saleh told them that he had nominated a she-camel. It had been dedicated to God. So the words are Naqatullah, it's the camel of God, it's the she-camel of God. It was a sign of God's punishment for them. And if they harmed her, they would lose God's protection. And after that, nothing would be able to stop the storm of God's wrath and torment entering their cities. Waskuru, إِذْ جَعَلَكُمْ خُلَفَاءَ مِنْ بَعْدِ عَادٍ وَبَوَّاكُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ تَتَّخِذُونَ مِنْ سُهُولِهَا قُصُورًا وَتَنْحِتُونَ الْجِبَالَ بُيُوتًا فَاذْكُرُوا عَلَىٰ اللَّهِ وَلَا تَعْثَوْا فِي الْأَرْضِ مُفْسِدِينَ. Remember when after the nation of Ad, God gave you sovereignty and granted you ascendancy in the land. You make grand forts in its fields and carve houses from mountains. So remember the majesties of God and do not spread disorder in the land. So once again you can see that the Samud had this capability of building great and enormous structures, and the height of adeptness they had attained in this art can be witnessed even today in the Madain of Saleh. These are signs that are spread over thousands of acres of land, are similar to the ones found in India at Ellora and Ajanta and some other places, and these are monumental structures that can still be seen. And when it is said that Fazkuru ala Allah, that remember the majesties of God, and then La ta'saw fil ardi mufsidin, do not spread order in the land. So the thing that is being conveyed to them is that considering this development, advancement and power as a majesty of God's own splendor, they should be grateful to God and not show arrogance and rebelliousness. It is also known that the material development is no crime, and neither building skyscrapers is a sign of disorder or disruption. Disorder and disruption ensue when, instead of seeing God's majesty in these great feats, people forget Him. They become arrogant and rebellious by crossing the limits set by Him. And if this does not happen, then of course, like Solomon's Sarhum Mumarradun min Qawarir, which is a palace that was paved with crystal, about which the Quran has praised, these buildings would become a sign of comprehending God. So it's just a question of how you look at these things. قال الملأ الذين استكبروا من قومه للذين استضعفوا لمن آمن منهم أتعلمون أن صالحا مرسل من ربه قالوا إنا بما أرسل به مؤمنون. The arrogant elders of his nation said to the subservient among them who had accepted faith, "Do you think that Saleh has been sent by his Lord?" They replied, "We do believe in the message with which he has been sent." So this question actually is meant to elicit a negative answer. And the implication is that, do they really regard him to be God's messenger? Which actually means that it's a very foolish thing that they are doing, and foolishness and silliness has got the better of them. So these people who were their leaders would in this way make fun of the other lot who they led, and they thought that, well, if they have believed in Saleh, then they have done a very foolish thing. And then it is said that as far as they are concerned, I mean, of course, these people who are following Saleh, they said, "Inna bima ursila bihi mu'minun," that we do believe in the message that he has sent. In other words, that they not only regarded Saleh to be God's messenger, but also had wholeheartedly accepted the message which God sent them through, which God sent through him, and they were bearing witness to it with full emphasis and determination. And they meant that the powerful arguments offered by the message were enough for them, and like those leaders did not await miracles thereby, misfortune taking them to the brink of ruin where these leaders stood. So it was they who accepted the reasoning and the arguments that were offered. They were not demanding miracles, and they were not demanding extraordinary feats to believe that, yes, he is a true messenger of God. So, قال الذين استكبروا إنا بالذي آمنتم به كافرون. At this, those arrogant people said, "But we believe in what you have believed. But we disbelieve in what you have believed." So this is like an arrogance of their utter jitteriness, and as if they are unsettled. And they told Saleh that it does not make any difference if he believes until they decide to believe. This is because only they matter, and they have decided not to believe. So basically, they declared, "Inna billazi amantum bihi kafirun," that we disbelieve in what you have believed. فَأَقَرُوا النَّاقَةَ وَعَتَوْا عَنْ أَمْرِ رَبِّهِمْ وَقَالُوا يَا صَالِحُ ائْتِنَا بِمَا تَعِدُنَا إِن كُنْتَ مِنَ الْمُرْسَلِينَ. Then they hamstrung the she-camel and disobeyed the directive of their Lord with full defiance, and said, "Saleh, if you have been sent by God, Bring on us the torment you are threatening us with. So, hamstringing a she camel actually means that it is left to die. And we know that basically it was through their defined leader that this action took place. That basically through their own defined leader, this she camel was killed. And although it was just one person who killed it, the Quran attributes its killing to the whole nation, because the words that it uses is فَأَقَرُوا, they all of them hamstrung the camel. Now this is a very specific style of the Quran, and the reason for this is that the rest of the defiant among them were also inclined to it. It was as if they reinforced the decision of their leader. And the she camel was a barometer of the defiance of the nation. And it became absolutely evident from the killing of the she camel that if they were given a further respite, they would then go on and kill Saleh sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So remember, this is something that becomes absolutely evident. And then it says, فَأَخَذَتْهُمُ الرَّجْفَةُ فَأَصْبَحُوا فِي دَارِهِمْ جَاثِمِينَ فَتَوَلَّ عَنْهُمْ وَقَالَ يَا قَوْمِ لَقَدْ أَبْلَغْتُكُمْ رِسَالَةَ رَبِّي وَنَصَحْتُ لَكُمْ وَلَكِنْ لَا تُحِبُّونَ النَّاصِحِينَ. So before even this has happened, we know that they arrogantly said that if you think that this is a sign that will actually jolt us, no, this is not true. You bring on us the torment that you are threatening us with. So actually this word does not necessitate that the torment was in the form of an earthquake, because the words are فَأَخَذَتْهُمُ الرَّجْفَةُ, which means that at last a violent shudder overtook them. It is evident from various other indications from other places in the Quran that, like the torment that visited the people of Ad, this too was a torment that consisted of thunder and lightning, in which a tempestuous northern wind blew for many days, and the deafening roar of the clouds jolted and shook everyone. And we know these details from Surah Zariyat also, which is of course something that discusses their destruction. فَتَوَلَّ عَنْهُمْ وَقَالَ يَا قَوْمِ لَقَدْ أَبْلَغْتُكُمْ رِسَالَةَ رَبِّي وَنَصَحْتُ لَكُمْ وَلَكِنْ لَا تُحِبُّونَ النَّاصِحِينَ. At that time, Saleh walked off from them and saying, O people of my nation, I have delivered to you the message of my Lord and showed a lot of concern for you, but you do not like people who have concern. So obviously Saleh walked off from them. When he walked off from them, it actually means that when his nation hamstrung the she camel just before the torment visited them. So this was the time when Saleh left them, because now they knew that the wrath of God is going to visit them. Now, a question may arise here about the sequence of narration, which is perfectly natural to have arisen, and that is that why is this statement of Saleh mentioned after the torment? You see, it is said فَأَخَذَتْهُمُ الرَّجْفَةُ, the torment visited him, but Saleh had walked off much before that. The answer to this question is that this sequence of narration has much to do with the eloquent nature of the Quran. To highlight the immediate consequence of the crime, the torment is mentioned right after the killing of the she camel. And the mention of Saleh's migration or walking away is deferred, although it took place first. But just to highlight that as soon as they committed the crime, this was their fate. So that is why it is mentioned first. And this is a style that we will see has been employed by the Quran at other instances as well. فَتَوَلَّ عَنْهُمْ, of course, O people of my nation, I had delivered to you the message of my Lord and showed a lot of concern for you, but you do not like people who have concern. Now, this is the very last limit of the decadence of a nation, obviously after which no possibility of reform remains, because once people dislike or start to disliking those people who are their well-wishers, it becomes a nation that has lost its soul. At that time, the well-wishers themselves become a target of their jeers and rebukes, and the evil wishers become their heroes and their leaders. So now we come to the account of the next prophet in line, and this is the prophet Lot. So he said, وَلُوطًا إِذْ قَالَ لِقَوْمِهِ أَتَأْتُونَ الْفَاحِشَةَ مَا سَبَقَكُمْ بِهَا مِنْ أَحَدٍ مِنَ الْعَالَمِينَ إِنَّكُمْ لَتَأْتُونَ الرِّجَالَ شَهْوَةً مِنْ دُونِ النِّسَاءِ بَلْ أَنْتُمْ قَوْمٌ مُسْرِفُونَ. Similarly, we sent Lot when he said to his nation, "Do you commit this vulgarity? No nation before you has perpetrated it. Do you fulfill your desire through men, leaving aside women? In reality, you have lost your sight. In fact, you are those who have totally crossed the limits." So Lot, we know from the Bible, was a paternal nephew of Abraham. So he was Abraham's brother's son. And his people actually lived in the area that lies between the north of Syria, and which is between Iraq and Palestine, and which today is called the Sharq al-Urdun. And in the Bible, its biggest city or the largest city of that area is called Sodom. The prophets who are alluded to earlier are mentioned by the words Akhahum Huda or Akhahum Salihah, which mean that they were from their own nation. They belonged to their nation. They were their brothers, Akha. However, Lot is not mentioned thus. It's not said Akhahum Luta, their brother Lut. The reason for this is that though he spent a long time among them, he did not belong to their nation. His relationship with his nation was precisely the same as Moses had with the Pharaoh's nation. Further ahead, the manner in which his wife is mentioned, as we shall see, it shows that he was married into them, and in this respect had actually or virtually become one of them. And it is for this reason that the words nation of Lot are used by the Quran, and it is not said that he was a brother or a part of their nation. Now, the thing is, what is mentioned here is that do you commit vulgarity, this vulgarity? This question, the way it has been posed here, is meant to express hatred and abhorrence. And the use of word al-fahisha in the verse shows that this form of sexual lewdness was so rampant in them that both the speaker and the spoken to would understand what was implied by it. So the word fahisha is used, although the connotation of al-fahisha is, of course, that they would fulfill their desire from their own gender, and as such they were prone to homosexuality. And again, the Quran has said that you have committed this crime to an extent that no nation before you has committed. And we know that this too is an expression of hatred, and there is an element of astonishment in it. So when it is said that there is no one who has perpetrated this type of vulgarity, it can refer to both a person among persons and a nation among nations. And of course, here it is the latter which is implied. And also we know from other instances in the Quran that this evil had become a fashion and a cultural tradition among them. Its perpetrators would openly mention it in their gatherings and would not feel any shame in it. It is for this reason that unlike other prophets who began their call with the message of monotheism, the prophet Lot warned them of his evil. So you see, normally the prophets of God would say that I am a messenger of God, please listen to me. However, if you look at the words that are strung here, so Lot did not say that. Because of the intensity of that evil, he actually first called upon them to give up this thing. And that is why we find it to be mentioned here. The horrible nature to which they were perverted in this regard is only possible that if they have gone completely wrong in this regard. Wherever such people exist, the real need is to set right their evil habit, however much important other deviations may be. So yes, they did not believe in one God, they had other deviations, but this was the strongest of them. And others will be regarded as secondary, and this would be regarded as primary. His people, Lot's people, were inflicted with the evils of polytheism and disbelief as well, and other evils as well. But the extent to which they were afflicted with homosexuality it stood unparalleled. And of course, it's not just that they did so. The Quran has said that you crossed the limits. Bal antum qawmun musrifun. Now, this is the third sentence in which Lot has expressed his hatred and his astonishment on the evil ways of this people. So what he is implying perhaps here is that for the purpose of their sexual needs, the Almighty has created pairs of men and women. But the men of Lot's nation are showing a perverted nature by forsaking women for this purpose. Not only their boys, but also their men are afflicted with this filth. And what sort of a perversion is this that has inflicted them with this obnoxious ailment? Now, the reason for such extreme abhorrence and hate and amazement by Lot is that as far as adultery is concerned, in spite of its great evil, I mean, there's no question about it being evil, it does not disrupt the basic nature of human beings. However, the ailment of homosexuality, it actually totally disrupts it. Now look at the answer of these people. What did they say? وَمَا كَانَ جَوَابَ قَوْمِهِ إِلَّا أَنْ قَالُوا أَخْرِجُوهُمْ مِنْ قَرْيَتِكُمْ إِنَّهُمْ أُنَاسٌ يَتَطَهَّرُونَ. But his nation merely replied, expel these people from your settlements. They pose to be very pious. This was their demand. And they said that as far as these people are concerned, they no longer belong here. So we can see that this is the last limit of moral corruption and decadence of a society in which vice becomes a requisite of fashion and culture and virtue is condemned. In spite of knowing what purity is, people do not want it because they think that it is against their own perverted nature. And it is in this, to this extent, when matters reach, when of course the wrath of the Almighty is stirred. And then they not only asked them to be goners from there, they actually said that they pose to be very pure. It's like a slant, it's like a sarcasm that they said, that it tells them that it mentions their inner bond, which shows that their bond with homosexuality was so strong that when they thought with people who were guiding them towards righteousness, they not only expressed their own hate for that, but they said that look at these people, they're trying to be very pure, and they cannot be so pure as they are posing them to be. And then of course it says, فَأَنْجَيْنَاهُ وَأَهْلَهُ إِلَّا امْرَأَتَهُ كَانَتْ مِنَ الْغَابِرِينَ وَأَمْطَرْنَا عَلَيْهِمْ مَطَرًا فَانْظُرْ كَيْفَ كَانَ عَاقِبَةُ الْمُجْرِمِينَ. So we saved him and his family, except his wife. She was among those who were left behind, and we showered stone-hurling rain on that nation, the way it should be showered. Then observe the fate met by these wrongdoers. So she was among those who were left behind. Now this is a very expression, of the impartial justice of God. I mean, even if a prophet's wife is guilty of something, then she cannot be, allowed to go scot-free. The wife of Prophet Lot did not accept faith, and it seems most probably because of the bias for her clan and family. However, being the wife of a prophet could not save her. Like Noah's son and Abraham's father, she reached the same fate that was ordained for her. And the stone-hurling wind, you can see, that has been mentioned here. It is something that after conclusive communication of the truth by respective messengers of God, also called Itmam al-Hujjah, their nations have generally been destroyed by stone-hurling winds, and they have different names. For example, Hasib is a name for such a stone-hurling wind. We next come to another prophet of God, and he is Shu'aib, and about him it is said, وَإِلَىٰ مَدْيَنَ أَخَاهُمْ شُعَيْبًا قَالَ يَا قَوْمِ اعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ مَا لَكُم مِّنْ إِلَٰهٍ غَيْرُهُ قَدْ جَاءَتْكُم بَيِّنَةٌ مِّن رَّبِّكُمْ فَأَوْفُوا الْكَيْلَ وَالْمِيزَانَ وَلَا تَبْخَسُوا النَّاسَ أَشْيَاءَهُمْ وَلَا تُفْسِدُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ بَعْدَ إِصْلَاحِهَا ذَلِكُمْ خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ إِن كُنتُم مُّؤْمِنِينَ. And to Madian sent their brother Shu'aib. He called out, O people of my nation, worship God, you have no other God than him. A clear proof has come to you from your Lord. Thus weigh and measure full. Do not give things to people by reducing them, and do not spread disorder in the land after it has been set right. This is what is better for you if you have accepted faith. Now this settlement, which is called Madian or Madian, there are different names. It seems that it is named after Abraham's son from his third wife, Keturah. So basically, Keturah gave birth to Madian, and from this name, this settlement was named. It was mostly inhabited by his descendants, and its actual territory, if you look at the map, was along the shores of the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aqaba in the northwest of Hijaz and south of Palestine. And some part of it also extended to the south shores of the Sinai Peninsula. And two prominent trade routes of those times passed through this territory. And for this reason, the people of Madian had also become very advanced in trade. So these were very, very rich people. Now, again, the same words are said as a clear proof, which means that there is no God other than him. A clear proof has come to you from your Lord. This is what Prophet Shu'aib is claiming. In other words, the call of God's messenger, which comes with incontestable testimonies of God's assistance and help, are the ones that are being referred to here, and that is why they have been called as clear proof. So the word is bayyana, which means that this is absolutely something that makes things evident. The ailment with which these people were afflicted with was they were dishonest in weighing and measuring. So that is why they are being told that do not give things to people by reducing them. And because of the fact that this nation was traders by profession, their moral misconduct manifested itself in the form of, as I said, dishonesty in weighing and measuring. And this was an indication of the fact that the whole nation had become devoid of the concept of justice and fairness, and also of the belief that God's world is based on these concepts. So it is being said, La tufsidu fil ardi ba'da islahiha, do not spread disorder in the land after it has been set right. Again, the implication is that they should not adopt a rebellious attitude against God even after conclusive communication of the truth by His messengers. And people who have adopted such an attitude have been exterminated from the earth several times in the past. So, ذَلِكُمْ خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ إِن كُنْتُم مُؤْمِنِينَ. This is what is better for you. The reason that has been said like this is that the people of Madian not only were the descendants of Abraham, but also claimed to be the recipients of prophetic teachings. It was a misguided Muslim nation, and at the advent of Shuaib sallallahu alaihi wasallam was in the same state as the case was of Moses' advent in the Israelites. It was exactly the same situation, though the crimes that they committed were different. So it is said that those who accepted faith from the path of God after finding fault in this way, which means وَلَا تَقْعُدُوا بِكُلِّ صِرَاطٍ تُوعَدُونَ وَتَصُدُّونَ عَنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ مَنْ آمَنَ بِهِ وَتَبْغُونَهَا عِوَجًا وَاذْكُرُوا إِذْ كُنْتُمْ قَلِيلًا فَكَسَّرَكُمْ وَانْظُرُوا كَيْفَ كَانَ عَاقِبَةُ الْمُفْسِدِينَ. And do not sit on every path intimidating people, stopping those who have accepted faith from the path of God and finding fault in His way. Remember when you were few, then God increased you, and observe the fate of those who were mischief mongers. So they should express this gratitude. What is implied here is that they should express gratitude for the favors of God and not adopt the same attitude in response to the call of God's messenger as was adopted by the previous nations. They should keep in mind their fate, how they were wrecked and ruined and destroyed when they took to rebelliousness against God and His messenger. So they are being told that you must wait as the rest are going to wait. وَإِنْ كَانَ طَائِفَةٌ مِّنْكُمْ آمَنُوا بِالَّذِي أُرْسِلْتُ بِهِ وَطَائِفَةٌ لَمْ يُؤْمِنُوا فَاصْبِرُوا حَتَّى يَحْكُمَ اللَّهُ بَيْنَنَا وَهُوَ خَيْرُ الْحَاكِمِينَ. If one group among you has professed faith in what I have been sent with and another has not, then wait until God passes His judgment between us, and He is the best of judges. Now, what is implied here is that if some people have accepted faith and others have not, then it is still possible that the latter too accept faith by God's grace. So if it's just a question that maybe if they are given more time, they can reflect and come back to God. So they should not hasten the torment. It is in this expectation that they have been granted this reprieve that maybe they can reflect and then come back to God. So after the advent of the messenger, the decision of God has to be made come what may. Now they should show patience. Some phases of trial and test still remain, and once they pass, the decision of God too will be delivered at its own time, and it will be based on entirely based on justice. So we know what happened in this regard, and hence the reaction. قال الملأ الذين استكبروا من قومه لنخرجنك يا شعيب والذين آمنوا معك من قريتنا أو لتعودن في ملتنا قال أولو كنا كارهين. The elders of his nation who turned arrogant said to him, O Shuaib, we shall turn out from this settlement you and those of your people who have professed faith with you, or you would have to return to our ways. He replied, even in the case that we are averse to it. So this is the answer that he gave, which means that even if this is the situation that they are being confronted with, they have to realize that Shuaib's reply was that if they return to the ways of his people, it will actually mean that whatever he is saying and the realities in which he is professing faith are falsehood and lies. The fact is that it is the other way around. It is his people who represent a pack of lies and falsities. How can he return to them, leaving the truth that he is disenchanted by them to the utmost? So this reply by Shuaib was also given on behalf of his companions, and that is why it is said that Ba'da is anjanallahu minha, after God has delivered us from it. Otherwise, prophets of God are all on the same path, on the same basis of their innate guidance, even before prophethood is assigned to them. So that is why it is said that لَتَعُودُنَّ فِي مِلَّتِنَا قَالَ أَوَلَوْ كُنَّا كَارِهِينَ. Again, this is something that has to be understood in its right context. قَدْ افْتَرَيْنَا عَلَى اللَّهِ كَذِبًا إِنْ عُدْنَا فِي مِلَّتِكُمْ بَعْدَ إِذْ نَجَّانَا اللَّهُ مِنْهَا وَمَا يَكُونُ لَنَا أَن نَّعُودَ فِيهَا إِلَّا أَن يَشَاءَ اللَّهُ رَبُّنَا وَسِعَ رَبُّنَا كُلَّ شَيْءٍ عِلْمًا عَلَى اللَّهِ تَوَكَّلْنَا رَبَّنَا افْتَحْ بَيْنَنَا وَبَيْنَ قَوْمِنَا بِالْحَقِّ وَأَنْتَ خَيْرُ الْفَاتِحِينَ. If we return to your ways after God has delivered us from it, then this will mean that we have imputed falsehood to God. No, this is not possible for us to return to them, except only if our Lord intends. The knowledge of our Lord embraces everything. We have trusted in God. Lord, judge fairly between us and our nation. You are the best of judges. Again, something that is to be understood in its very given context, that the knowledge of God, as it is said, it embraces everything, and it is nothing which is beyond his knowledge. Wasiya Rabbuna kulla shay'in ilma, which means that these statements are meant to consign matters to God. Everything is something that we know returns to God ultimately. A believer can express a decision with great emphasis and with great determination, but can never forget that God's will shall prevail over everything, and his knowledge embraces all matters of the past, present, and future. And that is why it is said, Wasiya Rabbuna kulla shay'in ilma, that his knowledge embraces everything. And if the good intentions of someone are to materialize, then this too is dependent on the will of God. Only if God grants the person the urge and circumstances will he succeed. Otherwise, of course, he will end up in abject failure. Okay, so then once again it is said that if that is not the case, then we will be suffering, and that suffering would be leading us to great loss. And therefore it is said that God, Rabbana ftah baynana wa bayna qawmina bil haqq, O God, decide between us with justice, between me and my people with justice. And then it was again a response that they got, وَقَالَ الْمَلَأُ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا مِنْ قَوْمِهِ لَإِنِ اتَّبَعْتُمْ شُعَيْبًا إِنَّكُمْ إِذًا لَخَاسِرُونَ. The elders of his nation who had decided to deny warned people, if you follow Shuaib, then you should understand that you will end up in great loss. فَأَخَذَتْهُمُ الرَّجْفَةُ فَأَصْبَحُوا فِي دَارِهِمْ جَاثِمِينَ. At last a violent jolt shook them, and they were left lying face down in their houses. Now, of course, the manner in which these words are said, that you should understand that you will end up in great loss. Now, these words carry a threat in them as well as a pretentious display of sympathy. It shows that they are outwardly sympathetic as well. And what is implied here is that these elders have informed the commoners of his nation about good and evil. If even after this information they do not believe them, then they should get ready to bear the consequences after forsaking the elders and the leaders of the nation. So this is how the leaders of the nation normally behave. They try to lure in the masses and the commoners by these tactics. And of course, what is said here is فَأَخَذَتْهُمُ الرَّجْفَةُ فَأَصْبَحُوا فِي دَارِهِمْ جَاثِمِينَ, that at last a violent jolt shook them and they were lying face down in their houses. Now, this is a mere expression of torment, and thus we can see that it is something that shook them. And those who denied Shuaib, it was they who finally ended up as losers, as you can see from the very next word. الَّذِينَ كَذَّبُوا شُعَيْبًا كَأَن لَّمْ يَغْنَوْا فِيهَا الَّذِينَ كَذَّبُوا شُعَيْبًا كَانُوا هُمُ الْخَاسِرِينَ. Those who denied Shuaib was such as if they never lived in that settlement. Those who denied Shuaib, it was they who finally ended up as losers. Again, this is something so effectively and forcefully mentioned. that these sentences contain a veiled reference to the threats that were made to Shoaib and his followers by the disbelievers of their nation. They threatened them that they would turn them out from their settlement. And while referring to this threat, it is said that they themselves were wiped out from their settlement as if they were never existed. So that is why it is said, كَأَلَّمْ يَغْنَوْا فِيهَا. They were threatening to wipe out the people of Shoaib. And what actually happened was that they got themselves wiped out. That is how the Quran has actually mentioned that how you see that tables get turned against you if you vehemently and intentionally disbelieve in the realities about which you are convinced of. فَتَوَلَّ عَنْهُمْ وَقَالَ لَقَدْ أَبْلَغْتُكُمْ رِسَالَاتِ رَبِّي وَنَصَّحْتُ لَكُمْ فَكَيْفَ آسَى عَلَى قَوْمٍ كَافِرِينَ. At that time, Shoaib left them, saying, "People of my nation, I have delivered the messages of my Lord to you, and have done my best as well. Have done my best as your well-wisher. Now, what sorrow should I express on those who have taken to disbelief?" So again, this is the final thing which Shoaib had said, that I have done my duty, I have done my job, I have been your well-wisher, and what more can I do? And what sorrow should I express on those who have taken to disbelief? I have nothing in this regard that I can say further. What I have to say has been said, and now you wait for God's verdict. So with this, we come to an end to today's session. So remember, we have studied 2 or 3 prophets today. We have studied the Prophet Samud, Prophet Saleh, the Prophet Lot, and finally the Prophet Shoaib. So again, this is amongst those nations which the Arabs knew very well. So they are being recounted their fate so that they get hold of themselves and get to know the fact that their fate will be no different if they follow suit. So now you have time for any questions that you may have regarding the passage that we have just studied.
Assalamualaikum, Dr. Saleem. Assalamualaikum, everyone. Dr. Saleem, I do have a chat question. I'll ask that first. I do not see any raised hands right now. Why was his wife left behind? Was she involved in these indecent acts or encouraging these acts? In reference to verse 83, also, if you know a homosexual, should you stop any interaction with them or tell them about these acts and educate them? How are you to treat them?
Yeah. So as far as the first question is concerned, we don't have any knowledge if she was directly involved in these acts, but we do know that she was one who had taken to polytheism deliberately. She was someone who was involved in polytheism, and she did not give up idolatry even when she was convinced against it. And as far as people who are homosexual are concerned, you don't need to break your ties with them. They are also human beings. They are deviant in some respects. So, by maintaining a safe distance, you can still interact with them because their own sexual orientation is their own choice. It's something that they have chosen for themselves. It's a matter between themselves and God. As far as you are concerned, to be a human being's friend or a confidant or maybe someone who can even influence them in a positive way is something that you can always choose. It's not something which is forbidden.
Okay, another question. By the violent jolt, do you mean an earthquake?
So that's precisely what was explained earlier on, that not always it means the earthquake. In fact, we know from other instances in the Quran that it was a thunderbolt. It was a stormy, it was a great storm ensued, and the thunderbolt and lightning landed over them, and that also was like a jolt, and it shook them and destroyed them. They were struck by lightning and thunder.
Okay, Imran, please unmute your mic and ask your question.
Yes, Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Shehzad. Thank you very much for a really wonderful explanation. So this, it seems like since Arabs knew about the behavior of these nations, that means that they were also aware of the homosexuality that existed in those times.
Right.
But we hear, I don't know, and I was in one of the classes that I heard from a scholar that the Arabs, when they ran into the Europeans, that's when they found out that this behavior existed. But it seems like from the Quran that they would have known about this behavior from the past.
Oh yes, that's absolutely correct. I don't know where this information got to them, but they very well knew that this is something, because you see, Arab compositions, Arab poetry, Arab literature it mentions them a lot, and that is how they came to know.
Yeah. Thank you. And Jazakumullah khairan.
I do not see any raised hands right now. If you have any questions, please ask them, because otherwise we will be moving to the idiomatic translation. We'll wait for Dr. Saleem. I do not see any hands or any chat questions. I think you can just continue with the translation and we'll come back in the end.
Okay. So, wa ila Samuda akhahum Saliha. Wa and ila towards Samud, the Samud, akhahum, their brother, Saliha, Salih. Of course, what is suppressed here is that he was sent to them as a brother. The word sent or the verb sent is not explicitly mentioned, it is understood to be mentioned. So, wa ila Samuda akhahum Saliha would mean, and towards the Samud, their brother Salih. Meaning, towards the Samud, their brother Saleh was sent. Qala, he said, Ya qawm, O my nation, U'budullah, worship God. Ma lakum, not for you, min ilahin, amongst deities, ghayruhu, except him. Not for you from deities except him, literally, but idiomatically it would mean that there is no God other than him for you. Qad, indeed, ja'atkum, has come to you, bayyinatun, a clear sign, min rabbikum, from your Lord. Min, from rabbikum, your Lord. Hazihi, this is, naqatullah, God's she-camel. Lakum, ayatan. It is a sign for you. Ayatan, sign, lakum, for you. Fazaruha, so leave it alone. Takulu, so that it can graze. Fi, from, or in. Ardillah, God's earth. So leave it alone so that it can graze from God's earth. Wa, and la, don't. Tamassuha, tamassuha would mean don't inflict it. Bisu'in, with any harm. Do not inflict it with any harm. Fa, so that ya'khuzakum, visits you. Azab, punishment. Aleem, a torment. So do not harm it, otherwise a painful torment will visit you. Wazkuru, remember, is when ja'alakum, you were khulafa, you were made sovereigns. Mim ba'd, after Ad, the nation of Ad. Wa, and bavvakum. Bavvakum means to be granted authority. Fil ard, in the land. Tattakhizuna, you made. Min suhuliha, in its suhul is the plural of sahal and it means land, vast land. Tattakhizuna min suhuliha would mean that you made from its land kusuran, forts. So qasr is the singular and kusur is the plural. So you constructed in its lands forts. And what more? Wa, and tanhituna. Tanhituna means to carve out. So you carved out al-jibal, from its mountains. What did you carve out? Buyut. You carved out houses. So they would cut the stone of those mountains and they would carve out houses and abodes for themselves. Fazkuru, remember. Allah, God's majesty. Wa, and la, no, don't. Ta'saw, spread. Fil ard, in the land. Mufsideen, as disorderers. So do not spread disorder in the land. Qala, said. Al-mala, their leaders. Their leaders said, Al-lazina, those who, istakbaru, those who were inflicted with arrogance. Istakbaru, inflicted with arrogance. Min qawmihi, from among their nation. Min, from. Qawmihi, from his nation, which is Lot's nation. Which is Salih's nation. And what did they say? Lillazi nastuz'ifu. So they said to those people who were kept subservient. Allazi nastuz'ifu mean who were kept subservient. Liman amana minhum, that those of them, amana minhum, who were professed faith among them. And what did they say? Do you think that Saleh has been sent by their Lord? Ata'lamuna anna salihan mursilun. So basically it was that those who were the elders, qala al-mala, allazina astakbaru, that those who were the elders amongst their nation said to the subservient. So ustuzifu mean those who are subservient, because these elders were arrogant. So that is why it is said that the arrogant elders from his nation said to those who were kept subservient, liman amana minhum, from those who had accepted faith. I mean, of course, these subservient were from among those who had accepted faith from among them. Liman, those who man amana, accepted faith, minhum, from among them. And what did they say? Ata'lamuna, do you know? Anna, that Salihan, the Prophet Saleh, Mursalun, has been sent, mir Rabbihi, from his Lord. Qalu, they replied, which means that their leaders replied, or their followers replied, Inna, indeed we, bima, upon, ursila, what he has been sent with, bihi, upon, or with, mu'minun, believers. So these subservient people said, Inna bima ursila bihi mu'minun, indeed with what he has been sent forth we believe. Inna, indeed, bima, what he has been ursila bihi, sent forth with, mu'minun, we believe in it. So their reply was, yes, we believe in what Saleh has been sent forth with, which of course refers to the message of God. Qala, he said, or qala allazina istakbaru, those who were arrogant said, Inna, indeed we, billazi, about that, amantum, in which you have professed faith, bihi, in which, kafirun, we disbelieve. So the mustakbirin, or those who were arrogant, they said, Inna billazi amantum bihi, indeed what you have believed in, billazi amantum bihi, what you have believed in, kafirun, we are deniers, we are rejectors. Fa'aqaru, so they therefore, aqaru, hamstrung, an-naqa, the she camel, so they hamstrung the she camel, wa, and atau. So atau means they, atau an amri rabbihim, atau means they disobeyed, an amri rabbihim, from the directive of their Lord. An, from, amr, directive, rabbihim, their Lord. So they disobeyed the directive of their Lord. Waqalu, and they said, Ya Salih, O Salih, i'tina, bring to us, bima ta'iduna, with what you have threatened us with, or what you have promised us with, in, if, kunta, you, minal mursaleen, amongst the messengers. So bring to us what you are threatening us with if you are amongst God's messengers. In kunta, if you are minal mursaleen, amongst messengers of God. فَأَخَذَتْهُمُ الرَّجْفَةُ. Rajfa means the shudder. Fa, therefore, أَخَذَتْهُم, inflicted upon them. So the shudder or the jolt was inflicted upon them. فَأَصْبَهُ, fa, therefore, أَصْبَهُ, they became, fi, in, darihim, their houses, jasimeen, lying face down. So as a result of that thunder that visited them, they became downward, and they became faceward towards the earth, lying down. For asbahu, they became, fi, in, darihim, their houses, jasimeen, lying face down. Fatawalla, and fa, therefore, tawalla means, so that is what is said, that at last a shudder took place and they were lying face down in their houses. So that is fi darihim jasimeen. Fatawalla anhum wa qala ya qawmi. Fatawalla would mean fa, therefore tawalla would mean turned away. Turned actually. Anhum would mean from them. So Saleh turned away from them. Wa, and Qala said, Ya qawm, O my nation, laqad, indeed, ablaghtukum, I have delivered to you, risalata rabbi, the message of my Lord. Risalata, message, rabbi, my Lord. I have delivered to you the message of my Lord. Wa, and nasahtu lakum, I have given you advice. I have been your well-wisher. Nasahtu lakum, I have been your well-wisher. Walakin, but, la, not. Tuhibbuna, you love. An-nasihin, your well-wishers. So it is what is said is that I have been your well-wisher, but you do not love your well-wishers. La tuhibbun, you do not love. Nasihin, those who are well-wishers. Wa, and Lutan, Lut was Lot. So this means that towards Lut, of course, also we sent the message. And what was that? Is qala, is when qala, he said, liqawmihi, towards his nation, atatun al-fahisha, do you commit fahisha? Atatuna, do you commit fahisha, vulgarity? Ma sabakakum, that which was never done before you, biha, about it, min ahadin, by anyone, min al-alameen, from amongst the people of the world. So he said to them, to his nation, atatun al-fahisha, do you commit that vulgarity? Ma sabakakum, that was not done about it, min ahadin, by anyone, min al-alamin, from amongst the people of the world. So idiomatically it would just mean that have you committed something which no nation before you has ever committed, no nation of the world has ever committed? And what is that? Innakum, indeed you, lata'tuna, you come, ar-rijal, towards your men, shahwa, with sexual desires. You come to your men with sexual desires, min dun, leaving aside an-nisa, women. So you come to men with sexual desires, leaving aside women. Bal, indeed, antum, you, qawmun, a nation, musrifun, who has transgressed or who has crossed the limits. Bal antum, in fact, you are a nation that has crossed its limits. Musrifun, crossed limits. Wa, and ma, not, kana, was, jawaba qawmihi, the answer of their nation, and not was the answer of their nation except an qalu, that they said, they said, akhrijuhum, expel, akhrijuhum, expel them, meaning expel Lot and his companions, min, from, qaryatikum, your city, qarya, city, kum, your, so expel these people from your city. Innahum, indeed they, unasun, people, yatatahharun, who pose to be very pious. Indeed, these are people who show themselves to be very pious. Fa, therefore, anjaynahu, we delivered them, we delivered him, which means we delivered Lot, wa ahlahu, and his people, illa, except imra'atahu, his wife, kanat, she was, minal ghabirin, amongst those left behind. Wa, and amtarna, we rained down, alayhim, upon them, matran, a rain, which means we really rained down on them a strong rain. Fanzur, fa, therefore, unzur, look. Therefore, look, kaifa, how, kana, was, aqiba, the fate, al-mujrimeen, of the criminals. So look, what was the fate of these criminals. Wa, and ila, towards Madian, akhahum, their brother, Shu'aiba, their brother Shu'aib. Towards Madian was their brother Shu'aib. And again, the word sent is suppressed. So it would mean that, and towards Madian, their brother Shu'aib was sent. Allah, he said, Ya qawm, O my nation, Ubudullah, worship God. Ma lakum, not for you, min ilahin, any God, ghayruhu, except him. Which means that there is no God for you except him, which is God. I mean, except God, there is no other God for you. Kad, indeed, ja'atkum, has come to you, bayyinatun, a strong sign, a clear sign, min, from, rabbikum, your Lord. Indeed has come to you a strong sign from your Lord. Fa, therefore, awfu, fulfill, kail, the weight. So fulfill the weight would mean that weigh in the correct way. Wal Meezan, and the scale also. So fulfill the weight and the Meezan would mean that weigh and measure full. So kail is the unit of measure and Meezan is for weight. So awfu would mean that fulfill the measure and the weight. That is what is literally meant. In other words, it would mean that whatever you weigh, whatever you measure and whatever you weigh, awfu, be complete in it, do it fully. And idiomatically, it would just mean that just properly weigh and measure things. Wa, and la, don't, tabkhasu, reduce, annas, people, ashya'ahum, their goods, and do not give to people. I mean, la tabkhun nas ashya'ahum would mean do not reduce things for people by weighing less. Wa, and la, don't, tufsidu, spread disorder, fil ard, in the land, ba'da, after, islahiha, its reform. So do not spread disorder in the land after it has been reformed. Zalikum, this is for you, khair, better, lakum, for you, in, if, kuntum, you, mu'mineen, believers. So this is better for you if you are believers. Wa, and la, don't, taq'udu, sit, bikulle, in every, siratin, in every way, tu'iduna. So tu'iduna would mean threatening people, watasudduna, and stopping them, an, from, sabilillah, the way of God, man amana bihi, wa tabghunaha iwaja, who have accepted faith, which means that basically what is being said here is that do not in any way stop those, tasudduna an sabilillahi man amana bihi, those who have professed faith in God. So do not stop them. Wa, and tabghunaha, do not find in it, iwaja, any fault. So do not find any fault in the way of God. Finding any fault in His way, that is literally what is implied. Wa, and uskuru, remember, is when kuntum, you were, kalila, you were little, fakassarakum, therefore God increased you. Wa, and unzuru, look at, kaifa, what, kana, was, aqiba, the fate, al-mufsidin, of those who spread disorder. So look at the fate that was of the people who spread fasad, or who spread disorder in the land. Wa, and in, if, kana, was, ta'ifatun, a group, minkum, from among you, amanu, in kana, ta'ifatun minkum amanu. So wa, if a group from among you was one who professed faith, wa, and in, if kana, was, ta'ifatun, a group, minkum, among you, amanu, who had professed faith. So if there was a group from amongst you who professed faith, billazi, in, ursiltu bihi, in what I was sent with, ursiltu, I was sent, bihi, with, wa, and ta'ifatun, there was another group, lam yu'minu, who did not believe. So if there was a group who believed with which what I was sent with, and there was another group which did not believe, fasbiru, be patient, hatta, until, yahkum Allah, God decides, bainana, between us. Wa, and huwa, he, khairul hakimin, khair, best, hakimin, the judges, and he is the best of judges. Qala, said, al-mala, leaders, al-lazina, those who, istakbaru, became arrogant, min qawmihi, from his nation. So those amongst his leaders who had become arrogant, what did they say? La nukhrijannaka ya Shu'aib, we shall definitely expel you. La nukhrijannaka, we shall definitely expel you. Ya Shu'aib, O Shu'aib, wallazina amanu, and those who have professed faith with you, ma'aka, with you, min, from, qaryatina, from our settlement or from our city. Oh, otherwise, lata'udunna, you should return, fi, in, millatina, our nation. So they said that we shall expel you and those who have professed faith with you from our city, unless you return to our ways, you return to our religion. lata'udunna, ta'udunna fi millatina. Qala, he said, awalau kunna, even if kunna, we, karihin, do not like it, should we return to your group even if we don't like it? Qad, indeed, iftaraina alallah, iftaraina, we have imputed, alallah, upon God, kaziba, a lie, qad iftaraina alallahi kaziba, which actually means that if we return in udna, fi millatikum, towards your religion. So what is being said here is that qad iftaraina alallahi kaziba, we would have imputed a lie towards God in udna if we had returned fi, to, millatikum, to your religion. Ba'da, after, is, when, najjana, God had delivered us, Allah, God, minha, from it. So if we had returned to your millat, if we had returned to your ways, after God had given us deliverance from it, what would have we been guilty of? Iftaraina ala Allah, we would have been guilty of imputing falsehood to God. Wama yakunu lana. So wama yakunu lana would mean that why should this be possible? Wama yakunu lana, how can it be possible? And that na'udu, that we return, na'uda, that we return, fiha, in it, So وَمَا يَكُونُ لَنَا أَن نَعُودَ فِيهَا would mean that how can it be possible for us, مَا يَكُونُ لَنَا, how can it be possible for us, أَن نَعُودَ, that we return, فِيهَا, in it, إِلَّا, except, an, that, yasha, wants, Allah, God, Rabbuna, our Lord. So how can we return to your religion once again, except if Allah, our Lord, wants it. Wasi'a Rabbuna kulla shay. Wasi'a, all embracing. Rabbuna, our Lord. Kulla shay, everything. So our God has embraced everything. Ilman, with his knowledge. So in other words, his knowledge embraces everything. So that would be the idiomatic translation. Otherwise, literally it would mean that Wasi'a Rabbuna kulla shayin ilma, that our Lord's knowledge has embraced everything. Allahi, upon God, tawakkalna, do we trust. Allahi tawakkalna, upon God do we trust. Rabbana, O God, iftah, decide, bainana, between us, wa, and, baina qaumina, and between our nations. So decide between us and our nation, wa, and, anta, you, khairul fatihin, khair, best, al fatihin, judges, because you are the best of judges. Wa, and, qala, said, al mala'u, the leaders, allazina, those who, kafaru, had committed disbelief, min qawmihi, from his nation, min, from, qawmihi, his nation. So those of his leaders amongst his people who had committed disbelief, what did they say? La in ittaba'tum, la in, if we, or if ittaba'tum, we follow you, Shu'aiba, O Shu'aib, innakum, indeed you, izan, then, lakhasirun, you would be amongst lost. So waqala allazina kafaru min qawmihi would mean that the leaders of the nation of Shu'aib who had disbelieved, what did they say? They said to their commoners, la in ittaba'tum Shu'aiba, if you also follow Shu'aib, innakum, then you, izan, at that time, lakhasirun, would be in great loss. Fa, therefore, akhazathum, visited them, ar-rajfa, a shudder. Fa, therefore, asbahu, they became, fi, in, darihim, their houses, jasimin, lying face down. So a jolt visited them and they became face down, lying in their houses. Allazina, those who, kazzabu, denied, Shu'aiba, Shu'aib, those who denied Shu'aib, ka'allam, ka'an, as if, lam, not, yaghnaw fiha, as if they had never lived. Yaghnaw fiha, they had never lived in it. Fiha, in it. Allazina, those who, kazzabu, denied, Shu'aib, Shu'aib, kanu, were, hum, among, al-khasirin, losers. So those who denied Shu'aib, they were as if they never lived there. And those who denied Shu'aib were ones who were in loss. Fa, therefore, tawalla, turned away Shu'aib, anhum, from them. So Shu'aib turned away from them, wa, and qala, said, laqad, indeed, ablaghtukum, I have delivered you, ablaghtukum, I have delivered you, risalati rabbi, the messages of my Lord, risalat, messages, rabbi, my Lord, wa, and, nasahtu lakum, and I have given you good advice, nasahtu lakum. Fa, therefore, kaifa, how, asa, express sorrow, I express sorrow, ala, upon, qawmin, nation, kafirin, rejectors. So, what sorrow, kaifa asa, how, what sorrow, ala, qawmin, kafirin, should I express upon the people who have rejected. So with this we come to an end to this literal and idiomatic translation as well. And now you have time for further questions. So you see, this is just one thing that was afflicted with them, that they were cheating in their lying and weighing. That is one thing that was prominent. Otherwise, their main, I would say, crime or wrongdoing was shirk or polytheism. Because remember, it starts off by the words "Kala ya kaum ubudullah ma lakum min ilahin ghairi." Worship one God. There is no other God than Him. So basically, the crime of all these nations that you have studied so far was polytheism. Other things just compounded their crime. So the people of Lot were also guilty of denying the fact that there is one God. They said that God is more than one. And with that, the compounded wrongdoing that they did was homosexuality. Similarly, the basic crime of the people of Shoaib was that they denied one God. They said that there are many gods, or they at least said that there are other deities who can intercede for them. That was their basic crime. But it was compounded by another crime, that they were dishonest as well. So remember, the basic punishment that overtook them was not for these secondary crimes. I mean, they're still big crimes, but they're secondary. Their real crime was that they intentionally believed in polytheism.
Thank you. Now that makes sense, but like we see the same kind of evils in the society and all over the world even now. Is there anywhere in Quran? I have to look it up, that Allah Subhanahu wa Taala said that because of Prophet Sallallahu and his blessing, that He's not going to eliminate further nations after him. Because why is that the nations are not getting similar punishments anymore?
That's very simple to understand, because you see, the messenger of God, the addressees of a messenger of God, they are given these punishments, the immediate addressees. And with the departure of Prophet Muhammad and with no other advent of any other prophet, of course, that punishment will not take place. So these punishments are confined to the prophetic era. They are something that's not going to take place in the post-prophetic era. For the post-prophetic era, the judgment has been deferred to the hereafter. And for the prophetic era, the judgment has been confined in this world.
I see. So that makes sense, because then whatever Quraysh incurred, or what they received, the wrath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala during the time of the Prophet, could be seen as their punishment, right?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Jazakumullah khair.
So we have two chat questions. Dr. Saleem, what is the Arabic word for homosexuality? The person's asking.
It's not being mentioned here, but of course it is al-fahisha which has been mentioned here. And there is no explicit word which you can say in the sense that we do. But I think I might need to look this up and see that what exactly is the word, because the Quran does not mention it in the words that we mention it in English or in Urdu or in other languages. It just mentions it as a lewd act, as a vulgar act. So it says ta'tuna rijal al-fahisha, that you come to men with this evil intent.
And the second one says that for them, the translation of verse 84 in the copy of the Quran that they have, it says, "We rained upon them a rain of stones, and everyone was killed." Is that correct?
Yes, it meant that there was a big stone hurling wind, because when the wind is very fast and the terrain is such that there are stones lying on that terrain, so the wind picks up those stones and starts hurling them.
Thank you today for a wonderful session, and thank you everybody who chose to log in.